Hey everyone, welcome to the Vanderbloemen Leadership Podcast, where we help you build, run, and keep great teams. Thanks for being here. Let's dive in. Hey, well, welcome in. Let me tell you guys, we have one of the funniest people, not just here at Vanderbloemen, but I believe in the great state of Texas and even maybe on the earth, none other than Senior Executive Search Consultant. Is that right?
That's correct.
Eric Albert. Eric, it is wonderful to have you in today.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah. When we were discussing topics, the thing that we decided to land on was potential and noticing potential in young leaders. Eric, I know, is a Michael Jordan fan, not a fan of the greatest player of all time, LeBron James. And so when I think of potential, I think of a 6'8" coming out of high school straight into the league and dominating ever since. Eric, I don't know what your definition may be, but...
Well, I mean, you really, in an NBA perspective, you look at a lot of 6'8", 6'9" athletes that came out that they were going to dominate the NBA because they had lots of potential.
That's right.
And they never panned out. For whatever reason, they didn't work hard, they didn't have good work ethic, they weren't put in the right situation, they didn't have the right coach, the right organization, whatever it is, they had great potential, just never panned out for them.
Yeah. What are some of the things when you think of noticing someone that has leadership potential? And even we talked about the thought of hiring someone based off of their potential. What are some of the characteristics that you're maybe looking out for when trying to notice someone with that type of potential?
Yeah, I think that sometimes what we naturally look for is we look for somebody that is the loudest, that talks the most, that is doing kind of attention drawing kind of things.
Yep.
And those are the people that get noticed the most. Mm-hmm. But probably potential, we're looking for somebody that's quietly working, that's making sure that details get taken care of, but also at the same time that they're caring for those that are around them. And that's it's not in their job description. It's not part of their responsibilities, but they're checking in with their peers, their teammates, and they're making sure that everybody is doing well with the load that they're pulling to be able to just make sure that everybody gets to where we're going and not just them.
Yeah, I think that's wonderful. And one of the things that I find so interesting about potential is that, well, some people have lots of it. Other people have kind of maxed theirs out. Can you talk about the difference maybe between noticing whether it be a candidate or, just a leader in general of a team of, hey, this person, they're going to make mistakes, but their ceiling is really high, versus this person may be a little bit more polished, but they've pretty much maxed out where they're going to get to.
Yeah, a lot of times, even in the line of work that we have of being able to see a candidate and say, I think that they can take that next step. They haven't yet, but I think they could. Yep. And this is why. It's because part of it is people that are pouring into them. If they don't have anyone pouring into them and they're doing it all on their own, it is going to be pretty tough.
Yeah.
But for them to be able to say, I'm listening to this podcast, I'm reading this author, I'm watching this person's sermons, I'm being influenced by these thought leaders, helps me to know that they are being poured into and they're not a well that's going to run dry. Potential-wise, you look at people that have been asked to do more than what their job description says, and they're able to handle that. They continue to get, maybe promoted is the wrong word, but they're given more responsibility, and they're able to handle that. Maybe they were originally hired as an intern, and the next thing you know, they're second in command. And it's because the potential that they have, that it just continues to grow, and which along with that becomes responsibilities and authority.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Is there maybe a story that you have of a candidate where you were like, oh, I think this person, I think they could get to that level, and they went ahead and did it? Is there maybe a story, or maybe not even a candidate, maybe just a leader in general, where you were like, I think this person, if we maybe add a little bit more to their plate, they give them a little bit more authority, responsibility, that they can take it to the next level, and that they went ahead and they went and took that next step.
A lot of times churches will say to us, hey, we are looking for somebody that has been a senior pastor, that is the same size or larger church than us. Schools will say the same thing. We're looking for a head of school that is at a school the same size as us or larger. But a lot of times what I'll see is that they will hire the senior associate pastor. They will hire the assistant head of school, somebody that they say, oh, they're really doing the job. They just don't have the title. And they're looking for that place to be able to spread their wings and have a bigger circle of influence. And so they give them that opportunity to be able to thrive. And that's been great to be able to see. Without naming names, I have a church, it was out in the Maryland area, and they were looking for the next senior pastor that was going to follow a senior pastor of 40 plus years.
Wow.
And he had been the pastor to the community. And they needed somebody that was going to be able to come and lead them into the next season, to be the Joshua after the Moses. Mm-hmm. And probably the person that if I'm betting on searches, I'm losing money, because the guy I remember even saying, this guy has a lot of potential. He just hasn't done it yet. Yeah. And that was the person that they ended up going with, and they're doing great.
That's wonderful. I love to hear that. I think it's super interesting that at times, we even joked a little bit at the start of like when we see a basketball player that coming out of high school, 6'9", has all the intangibles, right? Has super athletic, and then they're what most would call a bust. Yep. Like they fell on their face. They failed. They didn't make it. That potential that we thought that they have, or maybe they even still do have, they just never were able to, in reality, bring themselves to that type of level. Is there any common characteristics you've seen in leaders who maybe have a lot of potential, but always leave you wondering kind of like, what if, like they could have, that type of thing?
Yeah, I would say that there are natural born leaders, that their personality, that people just follow them.
Yeah.
And then there's those that aren't born with that, but they have to develop that later, and they have to learn how to work with other people and how to get people to not just listen to them, but hear them, and then follow them. And you see those people that are natural born leaders, and they just never develop. And it's because I'd say they got lazy, they got complacent, they were comfortable, and they stopped learning, they stopped advancing, they stopped developing, and so they had all the potential in the world and just plateaued. And then you see people that they have to go and they have to work hard for it, to learn. It's a daily struggle for them. It goes against their personality. Yep. Maybe they're a super introvert, kind of thing, and they have to be an extrovert, and they just have to learn how to do that. And people that are busting it, that are working super hard, you have to have just great respect for them, because it did not come naturally for them. They had to go learn how to do something that just didn't come naturally for them.
Yeah. I think I heard a quote one time that potential means work.
Yeah.
It's just, if you got potential, that's great.
Yeah.
It's, at the end of the day, it's a what if. Like, what if you raise your level to this? What if you improved like that? But at the end of the day, it does take work for you to take the next step as a leader. Yeah, I think that's awesome. One of the things that we have talked about a little bit, but is with Michael Jordan. You saw, and even LeBron too, but you see that work ethic in both of them. And how they were able to take what was potential and turn it into the reality of who they are as a leader and as a person even. How have you noticed maybe some people that were able to work and to turn that potential into the reality of who they were? How have you, is it mentorship? Is it maybe, you talked about people pouring into them. Is it a work ethic? Is it having those beside them to partner with them in growing, what if there was one that one characteristic, maybe one trait that you would say is pretty common in those who actually go and do the thing? What would you say would that be?
I think that for all the potential that you have, that at some point someone needs to take a risk on you. And someone needs to be able to give you the opportunity. And then I would, if you reverse it, that as leaders get older, they have to remember that somebody took a chance on them. Yeah. At some point, they had not done whatever that they are doing now, and somebody had to take a chance on them. I can look back in my career, and I can see at different stops that people took a gamble, and they said, I think that you can do this, you just haven't done it yet. Yeah. And that they didn't just throw me to the wolves, but that they coached me up, they allowed me to make mistakes, but then they also allowed me to lead. And even if you have natural born leadership ability, it's just potential that has to be shaped and formed. I think there just has to be that point where somebody takes a chance on you. And to, I would say, more mature, experienced leaders, I would say just never forget that somebody took a chance on you at some point.
I love that.
But also didn't just leave you to swim by yourself, but to swim together. And I think you can get there.
That's awesome. You talked a little bit about it, but like there is a risk involved. How do people who are leading teams, whether it be church, nonprofit, or even in business, how do they value that tension of like the risk tolerance almost of this person has a lot of potential, but boy, they are a big risk versus maybe a little bit safer option, but this person we think this person will be able to get the job done, just maybe not to the level that this person could. How do they balance that tension?
Yeah, there's that high risk, high reward kind of return, and you think there are times where people are going to say, I have to play it safe here. Because of whatever the role is going to be. But then there's times where people will say, I look on their resume and I can see this and this, but not this and this. Mm-hmm. But when I met them in person, like they won me over, and so there is some intangibles that I don't think are measurable. You can't put it on LinkedIn. It is just one of those things that when you meet with somebody and you connect with somebody, you say, I could see us working really well together. And it allows people to move into a role that probably even they never thought that they would be able to do.
Yeah, that's awesome. What's one of maybe let's talk about people who are leading teams, seeing maybe a person that has potential and maybe even over evaluating. Can you speak to maybe the dangers of maybe overestimating the potential that a leader may have, and if you have any fun stories or anything like that too?
Yeah, I would always say, hey, set the bar real high. For everybody on your team, set the bar real high, and you'll see those that rise up to that. And it helps you to be able to see what those expectations are and how to set them. It helps you to know if you have everybody on the right seat on the bus, or if people are even just on the right bus. And it just helps you just to be able to hold everybody accountable. And then there's going to be some people that you're going to lean on more just because they've proven themselves to you, and they will become a little bit closer, I guess, in helping you carry out your mission, whether that's in a nonprofit or whether that's in a school or any type of organization. There's just going to be people that you're going to say, this is going to be my go-to person.
Yep.
That if I need something done, that I know that they're going to get it done.
Yeah. That's awesome. And now let's talk maybe as we kind of get closer to a close here of developing the potential that we see in these leaders. Because it, as you said, it takes people to come alongside someone with potential for them to actually get there. What are some maybe tips or best practices that you've seen in the many organizations that you've worked with of this person had potential and you saw how they were able to come alongside them and help develop them into the leader that they became?
Yeah, I think part of it starts with trust. Just be able to trust people with responsibilities, with tasks, things like that. I'll tell you this story that we had hired like 60 interns at the church that I was at.
Okay.
And sometimes you know right away that person's not going to make it.
Yeah.
And then there's times that you're like, that person is a superstar. And rarely ever do the superstars know that they're superstars. And so we're maybe halfway into the summer. Okay. And I'm about to walk out on stage to do some announcements, and my intern is standing in the back with me. And I turned to her and I said, Carrie Ann, would you like to work here next year? And she said, I would love to. I was like, is that a yes? She goes, is that an offer? And I said, yeah, because we think you're a superstar. Hang on. I took the mic and walked out and did the announcements. And but I knew from day one that she was a superstar.
Yeah.
And I think the thing that I saw in her was that she was a hard worker, that she was willing to do whatever it took to get the job done. She wasn't a complainer. She did things with a joyful spirit, but then she connected with everybody on our team as well. And she was just a summer intern, but she was super sweet, but she also was just learning. She was just soaking everything up that she could. And so really, a couple weeks in, we knew that she was a winner. And she's still there, still killing it, knocking it out of the park.
That's amazing. I love stories like that so much. Let's maybe give our listeners just a lasting tip, a last minute kind of thing that they can do today to help their teams notice those people within their team that have potential, and then say, hey, let's buckle up and get them to the level they need to be at for us to be operating at our peak efficiency and such.
Yeah. I would say that just give them a chance. Give them a chance. That will it always work out? It won't. But that's just how potential works. Sometimes it's a home run. Sometimes it's a bust. Sometimes it's just okay.
Yeah.
But you'll never know unless you give them a chance. So especially for those of you that are looking at your teams, I would say as you look at your team, look at those people that you think, could they take that next step? And start to give them that opportunity. Give them a little bit of line to be able to see what they can do with it. And I think that we'll be surprised, hopefully pleasantly surprised, and just be able to duplicate yourself, that they can take your mission farther than you could by yourself.
I love that. Well, here's what I know, that there are lots of people on your teams with potential, but it's the duty of the leader to take the risk on them and to help develop them into what they could become. Thanks again for joining us on the Vanderbloemen Leadership Podcast. I hope you enjoyed today's episode. If you're looking for more leadership resources, you can find us at vanderbloemen.com and on socials at Vanderbloemen. We'll see you again next week, where we continue discussing how to build, run, and keep great teams.